Good evening and welcome to the May 17, 2021 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Council Member Sesma to lead us in the pledge. Mike, you're muted.
Gonna say that on my headstone. You're still muted. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mike. Next item on our agenda is reflection, and I would like to call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you all. Next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Tonight we have 3 sets of minutes before us. The first one is the minutes from the regular session on April 19th. What is the pleasure of the council? Mike.
Mayor, I'll move approval of the minutes from the regular session of the Mayor and Council from Monday, April 19th, 2021.
Ryan.
Second.
Okay, I will call the roll. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Councilmember Sesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel.
Aye.
And Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
All right, carries unanimously 5-0. Next set of minutes are from the budget work session on April 26th. What is the pleasure of the council? Rob.
Move approval.
Neil.
Second.
Okay, all those, same deal. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Council Vice President Sesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
And Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
I'll just say I received a correction over text right before I called the roll there. Okay.
At least he remembered you, Mike.
Well done. Well played there, Spiegel. Okay. The next set of minutes from Tuesday, April 27th, the second of our budget work sessions. What's the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Okay. We have a second, Ryan?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Council Vice President Sesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel.
Aye.
And Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
All right, carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. Next, we're going to appointments, and the first set of appointments are for the HDC. What is the pleasure of the council? Mike.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move a resolution of the City Council confirming your appointments to the Historic District Commission, to J. Rudolph Morgan to fill an unexpired term of Tara, the term to expire March 2022. And as the alternate, filling the unexpired term of Morgan, Olivier Cote, term to expire March 2022.
Thank you. Neil?
Second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Council Vice President Sesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris. Neil, you were, say your vote again. You was aye. Okay, Councilmember Spiegel.
Aye.
Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
Okay, carries 5-0. And then we have appointments to various committees. Next, what is the pleasure of the council? Ryan, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the following reappointment and appointments made by you. A reappointment to the Environmental Affairs Committee, Paul Lavinka, for a 2-year term to expire in May of 2023. The following appointments: To the Commission on Landlord Tenant Affairs for a 3-year term, David Mullins, Tenant Representative, term to expire in May of 2024. To the Cultural Arts Advisory Committee for a 2-year term, Cassandra Redding, term to expire May of 2023. To the Cultural Arts Advisory Committee, another 2-year term, to Kalicia Thorpe Price, term to expire May of 2023. And to the Educational Enrichment Committee, a 2-year term for Alyssa Tadaro Brooks, term to expire in May of 2023.
Rob.
Second.
Okay, I will call the roll. Council Vice President Sesma,
Aye.
Councilmember Wu,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel,
Aye.
and Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
Thank you. Carries 5-0. We will thank everybody when we see them for their service, and I'll remind anybody watching from who lives in the city or has a stake in the city, there are about 24 really important committees. It's a great way to get to know the city, how everything works, and have your voice heard and really get involved. So we recommend it, and we appreciate everybody's service. With that, we're going to move on to presentations, and I'm going to turn it over to Tanisha to introduce 2 newly hired employees.
Thank you, Mayor. I think they will be coming on screen here soon, and so I'll just begin speaking as they show up. I'm pleased to announce the addition of 2 new amazingly talented and accomplished professionals to the greatest organization serving the greatest city in the world. Anthony Tony Berger has been officially promoted to be Gaithersburg's Public Works Director. Tony joined us in 2019 as the city's engineering services division chief, and he has served as acting director since July of 2020. Prior to joining the city of Gaithersburg in 2019, he worked for the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, or PennDOT, spending 10 years in highway maintenance, followed by 10 years in highway design, with a focus on planning, development, and project delivery. During his career at PennDOT, Tony oversaw a portfolio of more than 400 major bridge and highway projects, with costs ranging from $150,000 all the way up to $100 million. He supervised teams of more than 30 staff, along with contractors, engineers, and consultants. As our engineering services division chief, he was responsible for the development and oversight of the city's infrastructure needs, including the design, construction, and management of capital projects. Tony is a professional engineer and has a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering technology from the University of Pittsburgh. He officially began his duties as Public Works Director on May 3rd. And next we have Kim Francisco. Kim joined the great city of Gaithersburg on May 10th, so she just started her 2nd week here as our Finance Director. Prior to this role, Kim served as the comptroller of the city of Rockville, and she's been there since 2011, where she managed the accounting, internal audit, accounts payable, and payroll functions. Prior to her work in municipal government, Kim served as a senior auditor for the public accounting firm of Con Resnick, where she specialized in auditing and internal controls analysis for municipal government and financial institutions, nonprofit organizations, pension plans, and the like. Kim has a Master of Science in Accounting from the American University and a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from the University of Maryland. She is a certified public accountant and is also a member of the Maryland Government Finance Officers Association, the National Association of Black Accountants, and the National Government Finance Officers Association, where she serves as a member of the Accounting, Auditing, and Financial Reporting Committee. So congratulations to you both. We are thrilled to have you here with us on this amazing team. Can't wait to see all that you do. And that's all I have for you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Kim. Welcome. We look forward to meeting you in person one of these days when we get back to doing in-person stuff. And congratulations to you. And you know, I'm sure we didn't intentionally work it out that our game would be Rockville's loss, but Sometimes these things happen, and we love Rockville, but we had to do this. So welcome, Kim, and Tony. You've been working with us for a while, and I know all the council and I were delighted that you were hired outright for this position, and we think you're going to be great, and we congratulate you. So thank you both, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you very much.
And with that, tech team, if you could bring up our District 17 team who are in the attendee room right now, as well as our lobbyist, Barbara Zektik, that would be great, because we are going to receive the 2021 state legislative session wrap up from our D17 team. Welcome, Barb.
Hello, great to be here.
And as soon as Kumar comes on, I'm going to turn it over to him first. Kumar, you are muted, but it is all yours.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this chance to briefly go over what happened in 2021. I will simply begin by saying that it was an odd session. We were socially distanced, and there were pluses and minuses to that. The minuses are, of course, is the lack of human contact, which is so important in the legislative process. The pluses were that we were able to get virtual testimony from not only all over the state of Maryland, but we were able to get it from across the country. And we were able to have a greater degree of transparency on voting sessions and subcommittee voting sessions, because they were all on the internet and they were all taped. And those were all positive things. And I hope we can keep some of those positive things for next year, when I hope we can meet as a legislature as we ordinarily do. So let me just quickly go over some highlights of what happened in my committee. And then I'll talk about the one big issue that I know is of great concern to you. My committee is the Environment and Transportation Committee, and I have more than just the environment and transportation, but I also have landlord-tenant issues. I have ethics issues and the like, and of course, highway user issues as well. So let me just quickly go through some of the key high-level things that we were able to do, but I'll say that we had a lot of little victories for the environment and one big unfulfilled opportunity, which we're going to work on this interim and get done next year. So first of all, let me say that we made it illegal for the Department of Motor Vehicles to share motor vehicle information with the immigration and ICE. And the reason we did that is pretty simple. When we initially passed the law that would make it easier for undocumented immigrants to get driver's licenses, we did that because we want everybody on the road to be licensed and insured and knowledgeable about our traffic laws. And the promise we made to them is that we weren't going to hold this against them. We weren't going to try and deport them because they're complying with our traffic laws and insuring themselves as all Marylanders do. And so we basically passed a law to deny the automatic sharing of information between MVA and ICE. And it's our hope that, again, of course, the issue of immigration is a national issue, but for the state of Maryland, we want to make sure that our drivers are licensed and insured and competent, and that's our primary function here in the state of Maryland. Next, we passed a bill called the Clean Cars Act, which is really a catch-up law that was supposed to have passed 2 years ago, but because of the COVID shortened session wasn't able to pass. What this does is it will get tax credits to all the people who bought electric cars over the last couple of years in good faith, expecting the tax credit. They're going to get their $3,000 tax credit for having purchased an electric vehicle, and they'll also get the credits that we give for people who buy electric car charging machinery for their carports or garages. We passed a bunch of bills that had to do with greater transparency for tenants in the landlord-tenant laws, and we passed a law that codified what Larry Hogan did during this pandemic. He basically created an affirmative defense for tenants who were brought into eviction court to say that because of the pandemic, I don't have an income, I'm not able to pay my rent, and as a result, this is an automatic defense within the context of a statewide declared pandemic. That we were able to pass, but most of the landlord-tenant bills, which went not to my committee, but to the Judiciary Committee, ended up failing for a variety of reasons. I don't need to go into all the details, but I think it's safe to say that the judicial committees were so overwhelmed with the workload associated with the policing laws and social justice laws that they just didn't have enough bandwidth to get all of this stuff done. We'll get to it next year, no doubt. We created incentives for DHCD to consider housing that is net zero or energy efficient. Because Gaithersburg is a tree city, I'll leave it to Delegate Gilchrist to describe what we did with respect to trees for the state of Maryland. We passed other bills that encourage greater reporting for fair housing. We passed a law that makes it illegal for condo associations and homeowner associations to have onerous regulations in their bylaws to prohibit electric vehicle charging in apartments. We created a mechanism to have large producers of organic waste compost their waste rather than just throwing it into the landfill where it will just turn into methane. We did create an exception for restaurants. And the reason we did that is that in this pandemic, restaurants have really been hard pressed, and we didn't want to impose a mandate on them at this moment. And I'm just going to stop there and say that there was a major piece of legislation called the Climate Solutions Act, which we weren't able to pass. There were major disagreements between my committee and the Senate committee. My committee is already planning several working sessions to really flesh out the details of how we're going to pass that bill next year. And I expect that that's exactly what we're going to do. Finally, let me get to the thing that I know you're most concerned about, and that is highway user revenues. We didn't pass the bill this year. And if you remember from the last time we passed a law, this is the kind of meta issue that really, even though it's in one committee and it's in my committee, it's not an issue that I can just pass willy-nilly without the consent and the agreement of the Appropriations Committee chair and their committee and the Speaker of the House. If you remember, 4 years ago when I got the initial bill passed, my first step was in convincing then Speaker Mike Bush that the time was right for us to pass the partial reinstatement of highway user revenues, and we were able to convince the Senate President as well. So really, I've already gotten to work on the task of convincing our higher leadership in the House of Delegates and hopefully also in the Senate of the need to pass the highway user revenue bill that had been before us this year. And, it's a work in progress. And, I'll just conclude with this one thought. It's been a very odd session, especially for freshmen like Julie and others. They haven't had a normal year. The first year, we lost our Speaker Bush. He died the day before sine die. The second year, our 90-day session became a 70-day session because of COVID-19. This year was socially distanced. And again, our work product wasn't as large as it ordinarily is. And the next year is an election year. So, hopefully the freshmen, after they get reelected, will discover what a normal 4-year cycle is like after this next election. So I'm just going to stop there. And our typical pattern, the senator will go last batting cleanup, and I can't remember whether Julie or Jim want to go next, so I will just leave it to them.
I unmuted first, so I win second place. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. It's good to be here. It's good to see everybody. And I'll just jump right into that forest bill that Kumar mentioned. You know, the Forest Conservation Act has been around since the 90s. And since that time, municipalities and counties across the state often take advantage of forest mitigation banking when they work on their Forest Conservation Act projects. Well, just last year, Anne Arundel County raised a question about it, and they looked at it more carefully. And then the Attorney General looked at it more carefully. And they decided, well, you know, actually forest mitigation banking isn't actually in the code. And even though there's 20 some years of precedent and practice, and Department of Natural Resources is the administering agency statewide and works with localities, that turns out it wasn't actually in the law. So the bill started out with just sort of taking us back to last summer to get us to where we were. And then along the way, it got heavily amended a number of times. And first thing we did was we added a study, which was a study that's been in the works for a couple years. Then a grandfathering clause and a sunset clause were put on it. So it will be back. And I think municipalities across the state will be interested in what the new policy will be, or what action will be taken. I think a lot of people across the state will be interested. Finally, it amended on was 1 million trees. So 1 million trees by 2030 in the state of Maryland. It was that was actually in a different bill. Oh, excuse me,
Jim, 5 million.
5 million.
5 million.
5 million trees,
Yeah.
everyone. 5 million trees by 2030. And, you know, that's came out of the Climate Solutions bill, which had a lot of items in it. It was amended over into this bill. So I know the city did express interest in it, and it will be on the agenda in the coming years. So it'll be back. But we got a good start on it, and we'll get a good study, which everyone wants to see, because there's a lot of disagreement. Like, you know, just starting off with what's a forest, what forest canopy counts, and how all the regulations should work. Let me just also mention the capital budget. You know, statewide, the capital budget, you know, you look through it, you leaf through it, it's sort of like taking a tour of the state. You know, you start off with, you know, in Ocean City, there's a life-saving museum. There's a Chesapeake Environmental Center. There's 2 minor league parks, one Bowie Bay Sox, the other one in Hagerstown, hospitals across the state. And we relied a lot, you know, the federal government, because of COVID, really helped us, our budget out a good bit. And so we were able to do these things this year. You know, some of the local food pantries were funded, like Nourish Now received funding. Ivy Mountain School received funding. Jewish Federation for Group Homes did. It was a really good capital budget, and I know everyone participated in that, and I think Gaithersburg was successful in that too. So let me stop right there, and we'll pass it on to Julie if she can figure out how to unmute herself.
Thanks, Jim. Well, good evening, everyone. Great to see you, Mayor Ashman, council members. Pleasure to be here this evening. I'm Julie Polakovich-Carr for Gaithersburg residents who don't know me, and it's great to be here this evening. And I feel like before I actually get started with my remarks, I just want to congratulate you all on your excellent choice of your new finance director. It was an honor working with Kim when I was on the city council in Rockville, and she was a great asset to the city. So definitely Rockville's lost, but your gain, and I know she'll be a great fit with the city. Yeah, well, let me just back up a step before I get into my remarks and just remind everyone, what uncertainty we were facing 5 months ago when we were starting the legislative session. Uncertainty about would we actually make it through a whole session. Last year, as Delegate Barbe mentioned, we had to adjourn several weeks early, and looking at other states across the country who were in session throughout 2020 and in the fall, many did have outbreaks of COVID. Where legislators got sick and in some cases died. So there's a lot of uncertainty about like what things were actually going to be like. Would we be able to get our work completed in a manner that was safe and, given just the very different environment and different protocols from past years. So fortunately, it was a very successful session. Not only did we get a number of big items, things that were on the to-do list done, but just a myriad of smaller bills and smaller reforms. And overall, it just was an exceptionally productive session. So some of the big things that we finished, of course, police reform. That was a big priority for leadership and for members in both chambers to actually have meaningful police reform this year to ensure civilian participation and oversight in the process, limiting no-knock warrants, mandating use of body cameras. The list kind of goes on, but it really was a meaningful package of bills that we passed this year. We passed $1.5 billion in economic relief, both for Maryland residents and for businesses who are struggling because of the pandemic. And very, I think notably for our community, given how diverse Gaithersburg and Rockville both are, is that we also included economic relief for many immigrants and for mixed status families that had been excluded under all of the prior rounds of federal stimulus efforts. We passed a number of bills in terms of public health and also addressing mental health, because we know that has been a big issue that many folks have been facing during the isolation of the pandemic. We passed a very meaningful set of reforms for the state's unemployment system. Far too many Gaithersburg residents and Marylanders across the state faced needless delays from a pretty broken unemployment system. This past year, collectively, our 4 offices have helped hundreds of District 17 residents to get their cases resolved, to get their questions answered. And this legislation just continues to make changes and to make reforms to fix the problems that came up from this particular crisis, but to ensure that these things don't happen in the future and to make some just needed reforms. And I was proud to be part of the group of lawmakers who helped to basically formulate that legislation, and was very proud that House leadership picked that up and made that a priority for this session. And then we also overrode a number of the governor's vetoes from bills that passed in the 2020 session. Probably one of the biggest ones was around education. Last year, we had passed the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which was a kind of landmark historic bill to ensure that every public school student across the state, regardless of their zip code, their race, their socioeconomic status, all were getting, world-class education. Governor Hogan had vetoed that legislation last year, and we did override the veto on that this year. Now, tied with that, because of the way that legislation had passed last year, some of the language in it, also comes the Built to Learn Act, which is also a historic investment in school construction. It means about an extra $50 to $60 million a year for Montgomery County for school construction funds. So that bill will also now take effect because of the override for the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. But as I mentioned, there were a myriad of other bills that passed. In all, we passed over 800 bills. It was about a 24% increase over last year. And last year was also a fairly productive session. So a lot got done. Happy to answer questions about particular ones. I just want to highlight a few bills that came through my committee. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee. We have jurisdiction over taxes, as you might guess from the name, election law, gambling, and K-12 education policy. On the election law front, one of the big changes that's been kind of a work in the effort in the works for a number of years has been to create a permanent absentee ballot list. We know this past year that many voters appreciated getting to vote through the mail, having their ballot directly sent to them for the primary. Many people chose to do that and have their absentee ballot, now known as a mail-in ballot, mailed to them for the general election. And now that'll be even easier going forward. Basically, for people who just want a one-time mail-in ballot or to go in person to the polls, nothing changes. But for folks who know that they always want to vote through the mail, now they will be able to just opt in and they will stay on that list for as long as they are a registered voter in the state of Maryland or until they opt out. And we know that there is, some percentage of voters who that's what they want to do. And so now they won't need to reapply with every election cycle. So I had worked on that legislation in a prior year. I'm glad to see it got across the finish line this year, sponsored by some other colleagues. And then finally, in terms of tax policy, that continues to be an area of focus for me, and ensuring that our tax systems are fairer, especially for lower income and for middle income families. Two of the bills that I sponsored this year that I wanted to highlight, the first one creates a child tax credit. Now, this has been in the news a lot more recently because President Biden has made this part of his relief package, and we have a temporary expansion of the child tax credit right now at the federal level, and perhaps going to have a more permanent one going forward. But in the meantime, Maryland now has a toehold into having its own child tax credit to help families who actually are left out of the federal child tax credit. And that legislation actually ended up being the vehicle for the economic relief for immigrants that I mentioned earlier. But that was a multi-year effort to get that legislation passed. Senator Nancy King from just north of Gaithersburg, she and I had worked on that for the last couple of years. And then another progressive tax bill that we passed this year that was another multi-year effort is to provide more flexibility to county governments in terms of their local income taxes. I think as you all are aware, local governments are required to impose a local income tax, but the state mandates that it has to be a flat tax, and flat taxes are inherently regressive. I know the municipalities get a share of basically what Montgomery County collects, but the concern is that someone who makes $1 million a year shouldn't pay the same tax rate as someone who's making $30,000 a year. So this legislation, which is now on the governor's desk awaiting his decision, will allow each county to make a decision about if they want to actually have different tiers for their local income taxes, basically to provide some more flexibility, perhaps provide tax relief to lower or middle income families. And they could do it in a revenue neutral way by increasing taxes if they wanted to on upper tiers. The way the bill ultimately passed, it's probably unlikely Montgomery County is going to take advantage of it in the near term, but this might be an issue we come back to in a future session for another bite at the apple there. And I think with that, I can stop, and I'm happy to turn this over to Senator Cheryl Kagan.
Thank you so much. Some of our Gaithersburg colleagues and constituents may not know Delegate Polakovich-Carr as well as the other two delegates, but let me assure you that she is doing a great job in Annapolis, is very well liked and respected by our colleagues. So I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville, and I'm pretending here with my backdrop that I am at City Hall with you all, and I'm even drinking my tea out of my Gaithersburg mug. Miss you guys, but I was in regular touch throughout session, and if we can bring up the PowerPoint, my colleagues covered a lot of it, but not all of it, so I will run through very quickly, and I think I'm not going to have control over it, so just we can start. Go ahead, next. So again, we were tested, we were masked. We took 4 tests, COVID tests every week. The Senate was in like phone booths, and it was really hard, but we got through it, and not one senator got sick, which was really extraordinary. Trying to get COVID tests and mass vaccination sites in Montgomery County was a challenge. I should say that I worked closely, not just with my legislative colleagues, but with Council Member Sidney Katz, to make sure that we had something local at Lake Forest Mall and then an up-county site for the vaccine. Go ahead. Again, we've talked about some of the relief. There was a package called the Relief Package that helps small businesses, nonprofits, and individuals, and that is making a huge difference. And you will hear more about that. Go ahead. Delegate Polakovich-Carr also talked about Governor Hogan's vetoes. It was, I don't know quite why he vetoes stuff, because he knows we're going to override it, but I guess he wants to make a political point or something. But the 10-year blueprint for Maryland's future about our K through 12 public schools was huge, and is going to make an enormous difference. And as you may remember from my report last year, it's especially important for those who don't have English as their primary language, those with learning disabilities, and others. There are a lot of aspects to that package that are going to make a big difference for Gaithersburg and Montgomery County students. Go ahead, next. Police reform took a lot of the bandwidth. The Senate and House, sort of like climate solutions, had a lot of back and forth to try to come up with the right solution. What we passed was not ideal. I'm not sure that anyone was fully happy, but in light of the murder of George Floyd, as well as Breonna Taylor and Freddie Gray here in Maryland, we had to take action and reform our police laws. And Julie highlighted a couple of those aspects. Go ahead. I think you guys probably know that for the last 7 years, I have been working to help Maryland transition to next generation 911. 3 people in my district, including one in Gaithersburg, died when 911 failed. I chair the statewide commission that I created, and now through this session, we have passed 11 laws updating our systems, and they have to deal with staffing, cybersecurity, transparency, funding, and so much more. We are just launching our 4th and final year. It's very exciting, and I'm really proud that Maryland is at the forefront nationally in updating to next gen 911. Go ahead. Kerwin 2.0 is the public school package that I just talked about. Go ahead. Telehealth, I passed a bill last year that helped authorize it, and many of our constituents have found it to be so convenient rather than driving and masking and risking things and waiting in line and parking and all that. It's just easier to take a phone call, send an email, or have a video chat. The problem was that young people didn't have the same access. So I sponsored another bill this year, and once again, it was an emergency bill to allow students through school-based health centers. And there are several of those in Gaithersburg, actually. And it's important for checking in with the students. It's also a way of gauging mental health, dental health, and behavioral and primary health care that otherwise would not be available to our lower income residents. So really important, very big win. Go ahead. Julie talked about voting by mail. So I am vice chair of the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee. And as Kumar said, it's a lot more. His committee also has more than that. So in addition to education, healthcare, and environmental affairs, we have all election as well as alcohol bills, procurement, local government, and so much more. Election bills were a challenge this year. We did pass some legislation. There were a lot of good bills that died and a lot of important legislation that did not get passed. We are going to probably be coming back next year with some emergency legislation. Delegate Polakovich-Carr and I sponsored a bill together that was a top priority bill for the Maryland Association of Counties and putting up guardrails and fiscal protections for our 24 local counties and the costs of running an election. Go ahead. The environment Kumar talked about, there were some good measures that got passed. The 5 million trees, buses that won't be polluting because they're going to be carbon neutral, electric buses, that's great and moving into the future. But it was disappointing that we didn't accomplish more. It was a stressful session. We didn't get everything done that we wanted. Go ahead. Jenny Forehand, my predecessor, you probably remember that she served District 17 for a very long time. She is retired in Indiana, and she worked for many years to try to repeal the Confederate themed state song. Maryland, My Maryland is offensive. It calls Abraham Lincoln a tyrant and a despot. And finally, with racial issues on the front of our mind, finally, and with new leadership in the House and the Senate, we are moving to repeal it. And the governor has indicated that he will sign the bill, which is great. This will finally be in the history books and gone. Go ahead. And I sponsored that bill. Gaithersburg had a lot of funding priorities. I was delighted that we got funding, not just for the Great Seneca Highway pedestrian bridge, but we also got an unexpected last minute $250,000 for Pleasant View Park to help kick off that. The other thing that I want to mention is the issue around the Gaithersburg Fairgrounds, which came up and was quite contentious, actually, as to try to figure out how we could take care of the nonprofit that is the Gaithersburg Fairgrounds without disadvantaging or removing revenues from the city of Gaithersburg. And there was a lot of back and forth and round and creative problem solving with Senator Zucker and Senator King. And ultimately, Gaithersburg is not going to be adversely affected. We hope we did and will help the fairgrounds a little bit as they hopefully return to normal in August with a real Gaithersburg fair. Go ahead. Gaithersburg Book Festival, I don't think I need to announce it here. I think the mayor might mention at some point, but got to have a slide for that. Go ahead. And I am all over social media. I think you all know that we have Delegate Polakovich Carr and I give out scholarship funding. I am very active through my Senator Cheryl Kagan on Facebook, as well as on Instagram, Twitter, and I have a YouTube channel, and I do weekly interviews with people I find fascinating, and I call it Kibitzing with Kagan. So Congressman David Trone will go live probably next week, and so you can check that out. And with that, I just want to say how honored I am to represent you all. And the mayor is literally on speed dial on my phone, but I think you know I was in touch with many of you throughout, whether that was by email or phone. And I want to, since I see Dennis Enslinger, Tom Lonergan, and our new city manager, Tanisha Briley, I want to give them a special shout out, along with Barbara Zektik, who was always available and responsive. And so great team in Gaithersburg, as always. The mayor and council are great partners. And the four of us are glad to work with you on your priority issues. Happy to take questions.
Cheryl, thank you so much. Kumar, thank you. Julie, Jim, we appreciate all of you. I'm sure, I know I was in touch with all of you during the session this year. We had kind of a roller coaster year, but you guys got a lot done. I feel that our city was very, very well represented. You guys were right there to look out for us. Cheryl, on the fairgrounds issue, you were an MVP. There is zero doubt about this, and finding the additional funding for Pleasant View Park is amazing, and it's just we're all very grateful. Before I turn it over to the council, since we have Barbara here, let me just ask, do we have any update at all about this fenced off money for the fairgrounds? Have we heard anything more from the governor's office?
Only that the governor's office is going to take a little bit to try to decide what to do with it. So no, unfortunately not. They did say, like right after Siney died, that they're probably not going to visit what they are going to appropriate, what they won't from the fenced off funding until later this summer. Our original outreach was more optimistic than I would expect, given the fact that the governor doesn't generally appropriate these fenced off funds, but we still have a couple of months before I think we're going to hear anything definite.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. So I want to open it up for council members. Anybody who'd like to make a comment or ask a question? Ryan, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks so much to our delegation. We really appreciate you. I just want to take another moment to acknowledge the work you did under extraordinary, different, and difficult situation and circumstances. And I want to go back to just sort of a process comment that Chairman Barve made at the beginning of the presentation, which is that there are sort of pros and cons to the world we live in now when it comes to engaging with constituents and advocates. We're seeing it even in our municipal level, where by going virtual, we're giving opportunities to a lot of people who might not otherwise have physically been able to come to our council meetings and appear before us and offer testimony. But at the same time, we're losing something important in the personal human connection that we get from being with each other. And that's particularly true, I think, in Annapolis, just given historically the way Annapolis works and all of the huddles in the hallway and running into each other. And as municipal officials, as advocates, certainly as active members of the Maryland Municipal League, we all feel that kind of loss of that process. Nothing anybody could do about it this year. It was what it was. But we're all, I think, very eager and hopeful to find that again, and that experience, which adds so much to our ability to connect with you all and to advocate generally in Annapolis on behalf of ourselves and certainly MML on behalf of other municipalities as well. So thanks for making that comment, Kumar. And I do hope, with the next session still more than 7 months away, hopefully we'll get somewhere close to back to normal while still maintaining some of the positives that we've developed out of necessity. I did want to just take a quick moment while we have her here to acknowledge again the awarding of the prestigious American Jewish Committee Bookbinder Award to Senator Kagan. That's a really big deal. It was awarded to her a few weeks ago in a lovely virtual ceremony. And just want to congratulate you again for that well-deserved honor. And then, you already talked a bit about police reform. I know, I don't think any of you are on any of the judiciary committees that really had to delve into it. Certainly, that's something of great interest to municipalities, to Gaithersburg in particular, with our own police department, trying to figure out how all of the reform legislation is going to impact us. And I know our city attorney just issued a lengthy memo to us that we're going to be going through. But as the process of implementing that legislation goes forward, we appreciate working with all of you and others in the General Assembly to try and figure out some of the implementation issues for local government. And then finally, this may be a question for Senator Kagan. I know there was a bill that made it out of the House this year. I think it went to HGO to make Juneteenth a official state holiday. And I think it was referred to EHE, to your committee. And I know you had a lot on your plate as a committee. And I don't think it made it much farther than that. So I'm just wondering if there's any discussion about bringing that back and maybe moving that forward in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, may I respond? So thank you, Councilmember Spiegel. First off, the Bookbinder Award was a really big deal. So thank you for acknowledging that. And it's about advocacy, community building, coalition building, and all that. It was very cool. On police reform, I do want to announce that we consider, the Senate especially, considered it a work in progress. What the House sent back was imperfect, but we knew we needed to pass something. And so it is our assumption that we will be modifying it. I was in regular touch with Chief Stroka in Gaithersburg, as well as Chief Brito in Rockville, and asking for feedback. And so whether the chief or any of you all have thoughts or opinions, I know that you will be in touch with me, either directly or through Barbara or whatever, but please let us know about that. In terms of Juneteenth, the holidays and the special day, this commemorative days, those bills do come to my committee. There's a question as to whether we should repeal Columbus Day, whether to do Juneteenth. There was a Tuskegee Airmen bill. There are always a lot of those bills, frankly. And in a year of COVID, we really had to keep the eyes on the prize on education, economic development, supporting our historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, and that lawsuit that had been pending for a very long time, the budget, dealing with the federal funding, telehealth, kind of everything that we went through. So I'm afraid that some of the commemorative bills, really, we ran out of time and didn't get to closely consider what to do about those. But it's not just one bill, it's a lot of them. So thank you for the question.
We'll move to Lorianne.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to our D17 team for all of the wonderful updates. This was a double dose since I attended the legislative debrief, and it was just as thorough. And they even went above and beyond to answer all of the questions that were asked that evening. So thank you for joining us. My questions are about the Climate Solutions Now bill. I know that since it didn't pass, it has now gone to a summer study, and just wanted some more information about what we're going to be looking at and how we can be prepared to support this legislation in the next session. And then my other question was an update. I know during the debrief, some people were asking about the delegation penning a joint letter to oppose the I-270 widening. And then we got an update that we may not even have to worry about that because of the focus on the American Legion Bridge. And so wanted to also get clarification there and see where we're at with.
Sure. Let me start on the climate solutions. You may think that I'm trying to fight global climate change by turning off the lights in here, but in fact, I have a little bit of a technical problem here. So forgive me if I appear to be a little on the shady side right now. You know, there were a lot of complexities in the bill and a lot of disagreements, but let me talk to you specifically about one major part of the bill where the House and the Senate disagreed, and that was the portion that had to do with mandates on building construction. We in the House didn't think that it was a good idea to require every school district to have one net zero school, because while Montgomery County with 1 million people could possibly do that at very high expense, it would destroy the capital budget of small counties like Garrett County that have only 29,000 people. Another major disagreement was the use of funds from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, which is well, you don't need to know where the money comes from, but I will tell you that a very large chunk of it goes to help poor people pay for their electric bills. And we had a major disagreement. The House didn't want to take any money away from that effort to help poor folks with their electric bills. So in the future, we're just going to remove that provision and find other places to find money for vehicle electrification and more electric buses and all the other provisions. And so this summer, we're going to be meeting with architects, engineers, economists, representatives from the building construction industry and the building construction labor unions. And we're going to come up with a solution that I am confident that will be even stronger than anything that the House or the Senate considered this year. And then finally, with respect to I-270, it's true that the main well, let me just say this right off the bat. The legislature, the House passed 3 years in a row bills to really go into depth investigating these public-private partnerships. The Senate never passed any of those bills. And again, I want to be clear, Senator Kagan was not the problem here. You know, the fact is, the moment for the legislature to do something to slow down and investigate this program has really passed. It is the Board of Public Works that has to be the last protector of the taxpayers' finances. And so it's true, the American Legion Bridge is going to be the primary focus of the activities, but I-270 is attached to that. And so that's going to be the next thing. And so it's our hope that we can work with the Board of Public Works and make sure that in the end, we have a deal that makes economic and environmental sense for Gaithersburg and Rockville.
Thank you. I just know the environmental study hasn't been completed, but I'm glad it's been delayed until it can get a thorough review. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mike, please go ahead.
Well, thank you for that excellent report. I wasn't able to make the other meeting that you had earlier. I had a conflict. Imagine that, as a conflict in Zoom. But great work and great results. One of the things that I'm not sure that any of you touched on very much was certainly one of the things that's really been exposed by the pandemic is the significant deficit in broadband access across the state. But it's also in communities even like Gaithersburg, both in an urban and suburban setting where access is limited, especially for families of limited means. And it was good to see some of the activity going on and a recognition that this problem needed to be addressed. At the same time, we remain concerned, particularly with issues related to small cell deployment, of preemption of local government responsibility and authority. So I just want to make sure that perhaps you can, one of you can discuss that. I don't think any of you are on the committees that primarily consider that, but that has been an issue that Gaithersburg has tried to lead the fight on that, both within the state and in the county, right, and leading some efforts nationally as well. So I just wanted to hear some idea of where that's going and how that's, whether that's going to proceed in the near
Hey,
future.
Kumar's in the light now.
Yeah.
Councilmember Sesma, I'll start, and then if my colleagues want to add on. So broadband access has been critically important, whether you're talking about the education gap, whether you're talking about public safety and 911, kind of in every aspect of our lives, we need access. And the gap, the achievement gap is a high-tech gap too. And so, so the great thing, and I'm not trying to sound partisan, but thank goodness for the Biden-Harris administration and this Congress. And it's tragic that not one Republican thought it was important enough to support this kind of funding for our local governments. But we are going to have that kind of upgrade, both from federal money as well as from state money. And it's going to happen finally and not just be talked about. Kumar, Jim, Julie, do you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just briefly add, there were several pieces of legislation that did pass this session in terms of broadband, and I apologize, I don't recall the details because I think you're right, they went through committees that none of us sit on, but some of the 3.9 billion in federal stimulus funds that the state received, several hundred million is being directed to broadband. And I'll just note, since you brought up, Councilmember, about the affordability piece, that just in the last few days, the federal government launched a new program around affordability that people who need discounted broadband access can basically get it directly through broadband providers in their area. So for places like Montgomery County, where it's not lack of wire, but really an affordability issue, there is a new program through the FCC that people can get it discounted access every month for a period of time here.
Great, thank you very much.
I'll just quickly chime in because I know none of the District 17 folks are on those committees, but one of the better things that come out of this session, I think, was the attention to the fact that connectivity is not just a rural issue. I think our administration has been focused on rural broadband as a priority. I think one of the wonderful things that come out of this session was a lot of conversation about the affordability issues in more urban areas. And I think more funding is going to be attributed to those areas.
Agreed. Good addition, Barbara.
Well, as the key is to make sure that local government maintains its authority over deployment of these systems. Clearly, that's what our residents want. That's what our taxpayers want in our city.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions or comments from the council? Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody. Cheryl, Kumar, Julie, Jim, for your service and for your friendship. We really appreciate you guys, and keep on fighting the good fight.
Well, I just want to say one last thing. To the people of Gaithersburg, we always pick up a phone call from the mayor or from council members. If I get 5 calls and Judd is one of them, that's the first one I'm going to return. And I think all 4 of us feel that way about this, because we understand the role that you have to play in representing the same people that we represent. So there's no way you're going to get be left holding the bag for the cost of MS4 stormwater permits.
So
That's much appreciated. Go ahead, Cheryl. I'm sorry.
No. So another in closing comment, it occurs to me that none of us talked about unemployment insurance. So the 4 of us work together with the Department of Labor, and my staffer, Abby Snyder, has just performed miracles in getting people the unemployment benefits that they have earned. And so they can go to cherylkagan.org. There's a simple form, and we have our shortcut, liaisons, and we can help you. So don't hit your head against the wall. If you know of someone who needs unemployment, if they live in our district, in District 17, then we can help them. So please have them get in touch.
Thank you, Cheryl. I think Julie did touch on unemployment a little bit, but the more the merrier.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you all. Okay. We will move on to our next agenda item.
Take care. Bye, guys.
which is public comments. This is the time the mayor and council would like to hear from anybody who'd like to speak on any topic that's not a public hearing topic. And tonight, we do not have any public hearings. So basically, whatever any city related thing you'd like to talk about, we ask that you keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If you have more than 3 minutes worth of material to deliver to us, please send it to us in writing and we'll consider it just like oral testimony. And we ask that you state your name and address or neighborhood if you feel more comfortable for the record. Tech team, go ahead and play the how-to video for anybody who'd like to make a comment and we can't see them and we want to make sure they're able to let us know.
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
Thank you very much, Tech Team. I see one hand up so far. So Tech Team, if you could bring up Rob Krebs, please. And Rob, just unmute yourself, state your name and address or neighborhood for the record, and go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Rob Krebs, 7 St. Ives Place, Gaithersburg, Maryland, representing a number of people at the Saybrook HOA. Just wanted to, I've had a number of conversations with the council lately, and I just want to again thank you all very much for letting us air all of our concerns about joining the CCOC. I think you've done a really wonderful job. Now, this has been an unusual proposal, and it's memorable for its contentiousness and its complexities. We know we're going to work with the council afterwards. This is not a one issue, group that are coming to talk about this. We really want to work with you and continue. But since you're about to decide, we really want to ask the council to set a date certain to vote within a 2-year time period, whether you're going to continue or whether you're going to, say no to this. And I know Ryan has said that, we're going to review this every year and we're going to look at it. And if something horrible happens, of course, we'll have the ability to go in and take a look at it. But I'm saying that's not enough. I'm saying that the people would like to have a time certain where they know that if the evidence accrues and is brought before the council, they will be heard and there will be a vote up or down. And the reason I ask that is and I think it's being reasonable, is that if the council by its vote really believes that this is the way we need to go forward, then they should believe that it's going to be a no question, they're going to continue and the vote will be up. So it's really just a check, which will just give everyone a great deal of peace to know that we're going to consider it and look at it just the way City of Rockville did and see if this works for us. With that, I will give the rest of my time back to the council. I want to thank you very, very much again for all of the long conversations we've had about this entire issue. We again express our sincere empathy with those who have had a very, very difficult time with their issues and their management companies and their dealing with homeowner boards that are not operating correctly. We sympathize with that. We don't believe this is the way to go about it, but if this is the way it's to go, we're eager to hear who's voting for it and why, and ask you to please put a date certain when we can reconsider it. Thank you again.
Thank you for your testimony, Rob. Tech team, if we could bring up Doug Wolfe, please, that would be great. Doug, just unmute yourself, state your name, and go right ahead, and your address.
Doug Wolfe, formerly of Fernshire Farms for 30 years. I wanted to take my few minutes here just to talk about the great time I had serving the city on the Environmental Affairs Committee. In 2010, I felt an urge to get involved with the city and to meet people. And So I did what everyone did back then, as I went and I sat down with then Mayor Sidney Katz, and he said, well, why don't you join a committee? And he said, we have an opening on the Environmental Affairs Committee. And so in February 2011, I joined the committee. And I remembered our first meeting, we spent the entire hour talking about the problem with beavers in the city. We now know that beavers are just part of nature, and leave them alone. 2012, I became co-chair of the committee, and I've been either co-chair or chair for up until 2021. And we did a lot of great things in the city during this time. And I have to certainly thank city staff for the great deal of work they do for all of this. But we became a sustainable city. We worked on that for a year. The bag tax was passed, the styrofoam ban, pesticide ban. These were all very important things for the health and environmental sustainability of the city. On the committee, some of the things we tried to focus on was we had field trips so that the committee could do research and become more knowledgeable about certain subjects. We had joint meetings with other city committees. We revised our environmental awards so that we had different levels, and so that repeat awardees would have to show progress each year. And we also passed rules for membership to try to dissuade resume packers. But also want to thank all the city staff liaisons we had, Meredith Strider, Diane Back, Andrew Benjamin, Michael Wayan, Deb Moran. I learned a great deal from all of them, and they were really terrific. So in closing, I'm retiring on June 2nd, and my wife and I are retiring to Charleston, South Carolina. And so I just wanted to use this opportunity to thank the city. This has been a great experience. I recommend it for anyone, and I'll certainly miss the city. So thank you very much.
Doug, don't go anywhere yet, because we kind of thought that you might be testifying tonight. So we made up a special slide for you, and I want you to see it. Tech team, can you bring up that slide, please? Tech team is working on it. Here we go. Doug, we made up a certificate of appreciation for your service, and I'm going to read it very quickly. Certificate of appreciation from the Mayor and City Council, presented to Doug Wolfe of the Environmental Affairs Committee 2012 through 2021, in honor and celebration of your dedicated public service and commitment you've demonstrated to the city of Gaithersburg and the residents over the years. Your expertise and your contributions have helped make this a sustainable green community. Best wishes for continued success and happiness in all future endeavors. Presented this 17th day of May 2021 and signed by me. And Doug, I hope you appreciate the picture they stuck on there too. I really like this slide. But we really, on behalf of the council, we really appreciate all that you've given to us. So thank you.
It's been an honor.
And I don't know if you can see, but everybody's giving you a round of applause here. So thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
All right, tech team, let's move on to our next speaker, which is Larry Seeger. And Larry, as soon as you unmute yourself, state your name and address or neighborhood, go right ahead.
Hi, Larry Seeger from Fernshire Farms HOA. I probably have missed this somewhere in the discussion about the CCOC, but I just wanted to make sure it's on the record, if it's not, that CCOC will also can be used by the HOA to adjudicate a situation with the homeowner. It's not a one-way street for the homeowners only. Many of these people are aggrieved, and I know they're looking forward to it. Excuse me, but I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that it's a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street. I also have a little bit of a concern too as to whether or not, depending on what the class requirements are. Is it going to chase board members away from their duties? I don't know, but that's just something else I wanted to throw out there. Thank you for your time to speak tonight, and I do appreciate it as always.
Thank you very much, Larry. We appreciate it. Tech team, if you could bring up Tony Hudson, please. Tony, when you unmute, just state your name and address or neighborhood and go right ahead.
Hi, this is Tony Hudson, 214 Tulip Drive in Gaithersburg, and I've lived in my home for 50 and a half years. It'll be 51 on August 1st. I'm speaking to you about a concern I have, and that is about the shooting and ultimate killing of a young man named Kwamina Akron by the Gaithersburg police. I attended the Family and Community Day on Saturday for just a brief period of time, so I didn't hear everything that was said. But I had heard about the day from one of the speakers, and that's how I knew to come. Because basically, I was only vaguely aware of the whole incident from a small item in the Post. And also somehow, I don't know if I got an email about a rally after he passed away. And what my question is, I wondered if there was going to be, or if there is an investigation going on about this incident and who is doing it. I have to tell you, it was very concerning to me to learn to learn about it. And I really connected as a mother more than anything about how I would feel if one of my sons was involved in such an incident. I would want everything to be out in the open. And I'm hoping that the legislation in the State House is going to be really carried out in Gaithersburg. I've lived here a long time, and I really want to feel proud of the city. So transparency and honesty is very important to me. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. I will catch you up on it as soon as we're done with public comments. I'll say something about it, but I want to go ahead and finish up. We have one more speaker, one more hand up, at least at this point. Deborah Wenzel, tech team, if you could bring up Deb, and just unmute yourself, state your name and address or neighborhood, and go right ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Deb Wenzel, and I live at 11 Arch Place. This is the 6th time I've spoken, and I hope the last time before the City Council moves forward with a vote in favor of the City of Gaithersburg joining the CCOC. I'd like to clarify some of what has been heard at previous meetings. The cost of an association to join the CCOC is $5 a year per homeowner, approximately 42 cents a month. This is an insurance policy that guarantees equity for all HOA homeowners, especially lower income ones, not just the ones who have deep pockets and can afford legal counsel. I know equity for all constituents is a topic that is near and dear to all council members, as it should be, and has been championed in many other cases. The 150% increase in the initial fee is based on the fact that it is increased from $2 to $5 in 30 years. The CCOC cannot, under any circumstances, arbitrarily and unilaterally raise the fee. That's a decision that can only be made by the Montgomery County Council and only after the public has weighed in on it. The repeated testimony that a homeowner can no longer approach their board to resolve a problem once the city is under the CCOC is false. The CCOC does not allow any homeowner to file a complaint until they can prove that they have tried to resolve the issue with their board with no luck. The CCOC has had well over 100,000 cases in the last 30 years, only 12 of which have been overturned. That is a 98% success record, which I believe any company would be hard pressed to meet and very proud to hold. It does not sometimes take the CCOC up to 2 years to address a complaint. The CCOC is mandated to address a complaint within 3 months. It has been firmly established that trying to have an agency within the city of Gaithersburg comparable to the CCOC is not cost effective and would nowhere near provide the materials and resources now available from the CCOC and in multiple languages, which is imperative in a city as diverse as Gaithersburg. It has been mainly management companies and board members who have consistently weighed in to influence the council members to not join the CCOC versus homeowners from several different associations who have given personal and compelling stories of how they have been the victim of boards and management companies and have pleaded for the council to join. I myself heard a board member state that if the city joined the CCOC, they'd have to, quote, do things a lot different around here, end of quote. That alone speaks volumes of who doesn't want the city to join and why. I would like to end by expressing once again how much I appreciate the city council for hanging in there and keeping this matter on the agenda for over a year. This is an issue that has been very important to many homeowners for several years, not just the ones who have testified in favor of it over the past year. And I'm looking forward to a final resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Deborah. Tech team, we can bring up Dallas Lipp, please. Dallas, just unmute yourself, state your name and address, and go right ahead.
Dallas Lipp. I live in Washingtonian Woods, and I'm speaking in favor of the city adopting the CCOC for the city of Gaithersburg. I've testified before many times on this. I've been a proponent of this essentially since we moved into the city and had our own conflict with our homeowners association. Really just two things I want to say. The gentleman who spoke before talking about it being a two-way street, I think that's very important because it does help homeowners associations deal with homeowners who might not be abiding by the rules and thereby ameliorate some of the costs that the homeowners associations might otherwise incur by taking a homeowner to court, which is their only option at this point in some cases. Additionally, and this has been mentioned many, many times, but I think it's really important that it's restated, is that this is really a very low cost insurance policy for all homeowners, and particularly for homeowners who might be otherwise financially stressed. $5 a year provides a massive amount of protection. As I mentioned the last time I spoke, when we had our conflict with our homeowners association, we were billed at a minimum of $150 an hour, and we were billed for many dozens, if not hundreds of hours during that conflict. And it cost many tens of thousands of dollars to resolve that issue. So for those on the council who have concerns about homeowners of limited means being able to protect themselves and their rights and their property values, I would hope that they would all consider voting for this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dallas. Do we have any other speakers from the public? Going once, going twice. Okay. Thank you very much. I will note to Tony Hudson about the Kwamina Okran investigation. The way that it works is it first goes to Montgomery County Police Department. They do the first homicide investigation, and then it goes. They turn over all of their findings to the Howard County State's Attorney's Office. And they go over and make a decision ultimately on whether they want to indict or whether they want to. What's the word I'm looking for? It's indict or just let it go. What's the word? What's the other word? The other
it would be whether they would indict or exonerate.
Exonerate is the word I was looking for. Thank you. And so where we are in the process now is the county did complete their investigation, and it is in the hands of the Howard County State's Attorney, and we are all eagerly awaiting the findings and the conclusions drawn by the Howard County State's Attorney. I'm fighting off a sneeze here. Next on our agenda is from the mayor and city council, and we're going to start with Councilmember Neil Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So first I have a formal announcement, and then I will make a few remarks. The announcement is this: Gaithersburg residents will cast their ballots for mayor and 2 city council members on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. Candidate packets were released on Thursday, May 6th. Packets can be picked up at City Hall by appointment or accessed on the city's election website. Mandatory candidate training sessions will be held virtually on Tuesday, May 18th and Tuesday, August 10th. Candidates are required to register and attend one of the sessions. Deadline for candidates to file is Thursday, August 19th by 5 p.m. For additional information or to register for training, please contact Elections Clerk Lauren Klingler at 240-805-1087 or email cityelections@gaithersburgmd.gov. For complete election information, go to www.gaithersburgmd.gov/elections. So I missed the last formal meeting 2 weeks ago because my company held an executive retreat for 6 execs at our software development firm. I did enjoy my time, but I missed you folks. So I'll go through some of what I've been up to for the last 4 weeks, aside from spending a few days with my fellow executives at Lake Anna. I spent some time with Casey Anderson, who is the head of the county's Planning Commission, the chairman of the Planning Commission, and the vice chair of the National Capital Park and Planning Commission. The county is busy revising its master plan, now called Thrive 2050. And I was looking for some insight because I've read through the early drafts and some of it really didn't make much sense. And Casey was gracious enough to clarify and debate some of the issues with me, and I really appreciated that. This past Saturday, Council Member Sales and I both had the privilege of speaking and attending an Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Troop 1760. As someone who spent much of my youth in Scout uniform myself, it's one of the special things we get to do as members of the council. 3 young men became Eagle Scouts. That's something I never managed to do myself, but it was great to see and great to hear from 3 young men who are going to be great members of our society going forward. We had Mother's Day over the last couple of weeks. So hope all the mothers out there had a great day. I know my wife seemed to enjoy what we planned for her, and we had a nice call with my mother-in-law who lives in Australia. Today, we participated in a physical event, but to create a virtual observance for Memorial Day, since we can't do it in person for the 2nd year in a row. So you can watch that on our YouTube channel over the next couple of weeks when Memorial Day hits. And attended a COG board meeting and a transportation planning board meeting last month. There's another one coming up this month. If there's anything that you folks want to hear about, I will be sure to share that with you as after the meeting. And finally, took my 14-year-old son to get his first COVID vaccination today at Montgomery College's Mass Vac site. It was very orderly. It was a bit of a line. It took about 25 minutes to get from the front door all the way back to where the vaccines were given, but very well managed and very successful. I'm very glad to see what appears to be thousands of residents each day going to get vaccinated so we can get through this and get life back to normal. That'll be it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. We'll go to Rob.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We'll go to Lorianne Sales.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a few updates. So Neil already mentioned the Eagle Scouts recognition. It was actually 2 weeks ago to honor the troops' most recent 3 Eagle Scouts, Shashir Velma, Christian Ramos, and Max Calvas-Maki. Congratulations again to these young men, especially for completing this huge undertaking during the pandemic. And so it was nice to celebrate with the families of the recipients. I too celebrated Mother's Day, so I hope everyone who celebrated or was unable to celebrate, whether it's from a loss or because of the pandemic, we hope that you found a new way to honor the mothers and mother figures in your life. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so I joined the Montgomery County African Advisory Board to present a mental health awareness resources that are available in the city. And they also wanted to review the youth mental health rally that occurred last year in this a virtual event by one of our residents, and we debriefed that event as well. I was able to attend the Kwamina Akron Community Day. It was held at Lake Forest Mall on Saturday, so I attended late, and I appreciate the remarks and updates from our Chief of Police and our city manager and staff. You know, I know it's definitely a difficult time, as any mother would expect, you know, with how long these investigations are taking. And we hope that this experience can help with improvements moving forward, and depending on what this statewide legislation will do to influence the timelines of investigations moving forward. But as soon as we know anything else, we'll be sure to let the community know. So I thank everyone for their patience. Kwamina's mother, Miss Cooper, created care packages, food boxes for residents of all ages. And there were so many resources left over. We were able to deliver them to the surrounding areas, from Cider Mill to our own Wells Robertson House. So thank you again to the family for the successful day. And we did record our Memorial Day holiday recording. And so it was nice to meet our junior mayor. Congratulations again to Abir Day, a fourth grader from Rachel Carlson, who joined us today for his first official duty to give the Pledge of Allegiance during the recording. And congratulations once again to the Gaithersburg Cares Hub on their 1-year anniversary. They've gone above and beyond to adapt at every turn, from feeding, clothing, and taking care of, you know, our elderly, sick and shut in, with making deliveries. And now they pivoted again, and they are providing vaccination clinics. So thank you to everyone involved for making this hub a success. And I learned today that it's one of the busiest hubs. It's like ground zero in the city of Gaithersburg. So it's really special that we were able to stand up an effort such as this in the highest need community. So thank you again to all involved. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Lorianne. We will go to Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I will echo all of the comments that have been made already about a number of events that I also was able to attend, particularly the wonderful first anniversary of the CARES Hub that was already described. For those of our friends and neighbors in the community who are of the Muslim faith, and last week celebrated Eid al-Fitr, the end of the fasting holy month of Ramadan, I want to wish all of you an Eid Mubarak, and I hope you had a nice holiday. I want to echo the welcome and congratulations. I guess it's not really a welcome, but for Tony, but congratulations to both him and Kim for joining our senior leadership team, and we look forward to continuing to work with them. On May 5th, I was able to join a wonderful award ceremony program, and our Bank on Gaithersburg program was presented with a statewide award for being the 2020 Maryland Financial Education and Capability Award Outstanding Organization. The award was presented by the Cash Campaign of Maryland, the Maryland Council on Economic Education, and the Maryland State Department of Education, recognizing Bank on Gaithersburg for creating a diverse coalition of professionals that provides access to low-cost bank accounts, budgeting help, financial and credit education and counseling, vocational coaching, summer youth employment, and housing counseling to the community. The award ceremony was actually canceled for 2020 because of COVID. So this was an opportunity for our city and our Bank on Gaithersburg program to be acknowledged with this very prestigious statewide award. And congratulations to community services staff member Tawana Lofton, who accepted the award on behalf of the program. And it's a program that's particularly important in these times to be able to assist our residents and businesses, folks who are really struggling in the economy. And hopefully it's not just, it's part of a whole panoply where we're not just able to hand out direct aid like we do with the Gaithersburg Cares Hub, which is very critical, but also able to provide services to help people lift themselves out of difficult situations and poverty in the long run as well. We're doing both here in Gaithersburg, and that's so important. And congratulations to Tawana, to Maureen Herndon, to everybody involved in the work that makes Bank on Gaithersburg such a successful suite of programs. On May 14th, I joined the Maryland Municipal League's virtual award ceremony for the well-known annual If I Were Mayor essay contest winners. And it was really nice to see the students all gathered together. A number of their teachers and parents joined in the program as well. And to see MML leadership be able to acknowledge them and their participation in this great program, again, even during remote schooling and COVID times. And it gives you the great sense that the future of Maryland and its municipalities is in good hands with these young people who have such great ideas and such passion for service. So congratulations to all of them. And then finally, I just want to also add my thanks to Doug Wolfe. I appreciated his very beautiful words today, and we wish him all the best in his retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll go to Mike.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to add, but I do want to, again, congratulate the Seneca Community Church for being the host of the Gaithersburg Cares Hub, and to their faith community members and their many partners in service, providing service to basically the entire city of Gaithersburg, especially for those in need. So let me give you some perspective on the level of service they've provided. They have distributed over 601,518 pounds of food. They have served 22,748 households. They have served 7,773 homes in the neighborhood. They've provided 2,575 home deliveries, and they have distributed 147,359 diapers to the community and families in need. And they've done that with volunteers, and the total volunteer hours was 3,972 volunteer hours. So we want to thank not just Seneca Creek Community Church and their partners, but also all of those people who have volunteered. And I know that we're looking at some of those individuals who volunteered at the Gaithersburg Cares Hub on this screen right now. Also want to particularly call out, and our Community Services Division has been a big part of this hub, and also want to call out the name Suki McFadden, who I work with on the Kentlands Community Foundation board. She is basically the coordinator for this enormous effort. She deserves quite a bit of credit, and the entire community there, and many thanks for that. So it gives you some perspective, not only of the service they provided, but of the great need in our community. And they're not done. So you have an opportunity to add to those volunteer hours, provide cash or food, shelf-stable food, or other, maybe diapers. So think about that. I want to thank Rudy Morgan and Olivia Cote for volunteering, for being volunteers. Basically, their appointment to the Historic District Commission tonight, we approved them. And then again, thanks, shout out to Doug Wolfe. I think you're going to enjoy Charleston. If you want to know a little bit about city government, there's a couple of us that probably know people on the city council and the mayor that can provide you some information about that. So good luck, Doug. Thank you for your tremendous service and leadership on environmental affairs in the city. And we're sorry to see you go, but Charleston's gain is our loss. I know you'll do well there. Just a brief report from the Kentlands Lakelands or Kentlands Community Foundation, the Kentlands Lakelands 5K, which is usually Labor Day weekend. Still hasn't, they're still waiting for some information in order to make a decision of whether the race this year will be an in-person event or whether it'll be virtual as it was last year. They expect to make that decision by the beginning of June. So part of that depends on what the city decides as well. So stay tuned for that. And then finally, we've all spoken about Mother's Day and what a great weekend that was. It was a great weekend for my family. My adult children are all vaccinated, as is their significant other, so that they were all able to join us in Gaithersburg for a little celebration. So, and the reason I brought that up is the importance of getting vaccinated. You need to get your shot. Most people I know are vaccinated, and they've completed their round of vaccinations, or maybe they got the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine. But the reason that the CDC has lifted the mask advisory for outdoor activities and in-person activities is for those who have completed their round of vaccination. There's a high level of security in knowing that you're not going to be you're going to be relatively safe when exposed to people who might be COVID positive. But the reason that it's important to understand that if you want to get rid of your mask, the best way to do it is to get yourself vaccinated. So you and your family should be advised to do that. I attended my first outdoor large sporting event on Sunday. My daughter and I went to the NCAA men's lacrosse first round game. Maryland, the Terrapins faced the University of Vermont Catamounts. Maryland won. Go Terps. It was a great game. We're hoping that they go all the way this year. But the reason I brought that up is because even at an outdoor event, to get into the stadium, you had to wear a mask. The entire lower bowl of the stadium was open, but people were seated far apart. And most people continued to wear their mask during the game. So certainly people are cognizant of the new guidance from the CDC, but I think people are comfortable enough now, not knowing if someone who is not wearing a mask has actually completed their vaccination. Unless they know them personally, you just don't know. So it's important that you continue to just follow your own guidance. And especially if you're in engaged in activity with a large group of people, maintain your social distance if you can, and wear that mask. That's probably appropriate. And if you go shopping indoors, that's another reason to continue wearing it, because you just don't know who in the store, who else is shopping might be positive and they're not wearing a mask or whatever. So follow that advice. I think we'll be getting more guidance from the state and from the county soon on this. But in the meantime, the best way to be responsible about this is to take care of yourself and do the things that keep you safe and keep your family safe from exposure to COVID. That's about it for me tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. I want to associate myself with everyone's comments. I'm not gonna repeat them for the most part. Bacon, Tawana, the Cares Hub, Suki's a hero, Doug Wolfe, Appreciate everybody. I will note that the Gaithersburg Book Festival is continuing, that we are entering week 3. This week and next week are all children's and teen programming. So the programs are Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Please check the website, gaithersburgbookfestival.org, for information about who's coming up, and bring your kids to the screen and watch and participate in these programs. The authors, in most cases, the authors are part of the chat during the premieres of these programs. If you're interested in any of the adult programs, they're still there on our YouTube channel and they will remain there. I'll note the program that we had last week with Janine Cummins talking about American Dirt was spectacular. And she, we had built a program around that book and a conversation with her that was going to happen last year. And it was going to be this big, giant community-wide book club around it called Gaithersburg Reads. And so this, what we finally did, albeit it's not as great as in person, but what we finally did virtually was a program that was basically about 2 years in the making. And I feel like it came out wonderfully. And for anybody who's interested in the book or the controversy that blew up from the book and the publishing industry, it's just a terrific conversation. And with that, I will note that next week we will have a work session, this being Monday, May 24th, 2 items. The OPEB, which is the post-employment benefits liability funding strategy. So this is for people who are really budget nerds like us. And then there'll be some general budget updates we have a little bit more certainty on the American Rescue Plan funds and some other updates. So that will be next Monday, May 24th, same time, same place. And then May 31st, we have no meeting because that will be observing Memorial Day that day. The next regular meeting of the Mayor and Council will be on Monday, June 7th. And with that, I will turn it over to from the city manager, Tanisha.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple brief remarks. I wanted to mention in light of, let me make sure I get her name correct, Ms. Hudson's comments earlier, looking for updates on our investigation process for officer-involved shootings. Thanks to some great work from Chief Sroka and his team, and Britta and her team, we were able to activate a web page that just went online this afternoon that just gives some more information about our processes in general related to these kinds of incidents, and then it will provide status updates on the particular incident with Mr. O'Krine. So I encourage those who really want to dig in and understand the details of how the memorandums of understanding work between us and Montgomery County Police, as well as Howard County State's Attorney's Office and how that works. As we've mentioned, we don't have any substantive update at this point, except that the investigation has been turned over to Howard County, and they are continuing their review and additional investigation, and we will wait to hear their findings. And then I just want to, as we all think about moving, some of us more quickly than others, I know myself, I forgot what it means to look for weekend events and things like that. So I'm starting to slowly think about that again. A lot of our activities, outdoor programming, especially through our Parks, Rec, and Culture department, are active and running. The mini golf is open, and I really encourage people to get out and look around and see what's here in your community available. And we just announced today that we will be doing sort of a soft reopening of the Benjamin Gaithersburg Center, which has been, I know a lot of people have been waiting for that. So it won't be a full opening. It's about a month away. There'll be more details shared. We did announce that earlier. So on June 14th, we will open for some light programming and other opportunities for our senior community to come together in safe ways. So we're excited to be able to offer that service. And that will be the beginning of announcements, I think, that you'll hear from us at the city on our phased restoration process and when different activities, events, and services will become more widely available without the need to make an appointment as more and more of the community gets vaccinated. So we're excited about the progress we're making. There appears to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Tunnel's getting shorter, and we're thankful for the community's support and patience. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's great news indeed. Tech team, if you could bring up Tom Lonergan for our economic development update, that'd be great. And I know our senior community is going to be very happy about the Ben Gaither Center opening up, because Lorianne and I attended a senior advisory committee meeting recently, and there certainly was a lot of comments about wanting it to open, and I'm sure a high, a very high, if not entire percentage of our membership is vaccinated at this point. Tom, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item tonight for you. The Montgomery County Small Business Rental Assistance Program is now, as of today, open and accepting applications. Program is being administered by the Latino Economic Development Center, or LEDC, on behalf of Montgomery County, and it will be providing grants to small businesses in qualifying industries to support rental costs, both current and rent payments that are in arrears. This grant is, of course, intended to mitigate the injuries experienced economically to county businesses as a result of the pandemic. Qualifying businesses can receive up to $10,000 in rental assistance or 3 months of rent, whichever is less. The business must have a physical location only in the county, or county-based locations must account for more than half of the business's total number of employees, or county-based locations must account for more than half of the business's gross sales. Additionally, the business must have, of course, a commercial lease here in the county, and the business must have received $500,000 or less in annual revenue prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and be able to demonstrate a loss of revenue due to the pandemic. Restaurants, food service businesses, medical practices, religious organizations, and daycares are ineligible per county guidelines, but there is a long list of eligible businesses, which are mostly classified as traditional retail and personal services, that can be found on the LEDC website. There is a very short period of time for those interested in this program to apply. All applications must be submitted on the designated online portal by no later than Monday, May 24th at 5 p.m. That's 1 week from now. That portal and more information about the program can be found at ledcmetro.org. And in the meantime, I'll kindly ask all of you to help us get the word out to the community as we will continue to do. And that's all I've got for tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Tom. We will move on to ordinances, resolutions, and regulations. And tech team, if you can bring up Deb Moran first, then we will talk about our recycling program. Deb, welcome.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. So I have 2 different resolutions for you today. So the first one is about recycling processing. Back in February of 2020, which seems like forever ago, the Mayor and City Council approved a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3-year contract with Olive Street Processing for the sorting and sale of our single stream recycling. The city pays a rate of $99 a ton for that material to be sorted. And at the time that the contract was signed, historically, we had produced about 3,500 tons of material a year. So the value of the contract is not to exceed $346,500 a year. But in April, the pandemic and associated stay-at-home orders happened. And on average, month over month, there's a 20% increase in the amount of materials generated, resulting in a need to increase the value of the contract approximately 20% to $415,800. As restrictions have started to be lifted, we are seeing a little bit of a dip back to more normal levels, but not quite all the way down to pre-pandemic levels. And we are anticipating additional homes coming on board in the timeframe that this contract will be around for. So we're pretty confident that this 20% increase will meet all the needs that we have for the duration of the contract. So with that, I will take any questions on the recycling processing amendment.
Great, thank you, Deb. Questions, comments? Mike and Lorianne.
I'm glad, thanks Deb for that. So the question is, this is for processing and sale of single stream recycling. So what do they actually make and when they sell the recycled material?
Right now, not a lot. So they,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so they use a material price index to figure out exactly what they're going to get for each different material type. Mm-hmm. For the most part, they are breaking even across the board, so they don't make a lot of money off glass, but like milk jug plastic is worth about $230 a ton right now. So it varies on a daily basis. Right now, we do not have a cost or a profit sharing agreement with them because there is really no profit for them at this point.
So if they made I guess the question is if they actually made a profit on the sale, would that be split between the city and the vendor, or would they retain it all?
They would retain it all per this contract agreement.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go to Lorianne.
Thank you. So I was just wondering if we are we able to start looking at competing bids, or is it too soon since we're already?
Yeah, so we just finished the first year of this contract. So it's officially started April of 2020, and it's for the next 3 years. They were the only bidder on this contract, and there's not a lot of people jumping into the recycling game right now just because of the pretty low opportunity for profit.
Thank you.
Rob, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. And this may be a little off topic, but I know one of the things we talked about when we originally approved this contract at what appeared to be a very low rate at the time was this concern about where the waste stream would ultimately end up, i.e. not being recycled because there was no market for it. Do we have any data on that, on how the recycling has gone?
So I can't, so part of our contract, we get a report of who their buyers are. We haven't been able to do a waste characterization study or a waste audit of specifically our material because of COVID. So I can't give you like an exact amount of what our stuff went where. For the most part, our material is getting recycled. It's the trickier plastics that sometimes the list of buyers that we get seems like it might get incinerated or waste to energy.
Any other questions or comments, or would somebody like to move the resolution? Rob.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mike.
I'll second that resolution.
Okay, I will call the roll. All in favor say aye, any opposed say nay. Council Vice President Sesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel.
Aye.
Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
And Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Okay, carries 5-0. And Deb, you have the next one too. Go right ahead.
Yep, so this one is for the actual curbside collection of the recycling and yard waste. This was also approved on that same day, February 18, 2020, for a value not to exceed $1,148,400, which accounted for servicing 13,200 homes. There was an error, and the actual number of homes per the solicitation is 13,397. So we need to increase the value of the contract for that reason. But we are seeking a little bit more money than just to cover the 13,397, accounting for the new homes that are going to come on board. So we're asking for an amendment for the contract not to exceed $1,187,550 to account for 13,650 homes, paying a per unit rate of $87 per household. Questions?
Questions, comments from the council? And if not, would someone like to move the resolution? Mike,
I'll move the resolution.
Lorianne.
Second.
Okay, I will call the roll. Council Vice President Sesma,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel,
Aye.
Councilmember Sales,
Aye.
and Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
All right, carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Deb.
Thank you.
Next, tech team, if you could bring up Sean Stevens. We are going to talk about a hook loader truck. There's more to it than that, but I'm gonna I didn't want to step on Sean's toes here. Sean, you just have to unmute and it's all yours.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The resolution I bring before you tonight is to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of one 2021 or current production year hook loader truck with skid mounted 1,850 gallon water/brine tank with spray bar. Unit number 3540 is a 2010 Freightliner hook truck with skid mounted brine tank and has reached the end of its useful service life. Due to the age, condition, reliability of this vehicle and attachment, it needs to be replaced. Once the new replacement vehicle, a 2022 International Hook Lift truck, is ready for service, units 3540 and the skid mounted water tank will be sold at public auction. On March 17th, 2021, a solicitation for the purchase of one hook loader truck with skid mounted brine water tank with spray bar was advertised on the city website and in an issue of e-Maryland Marketplace. One company responded to the solicitation and the bid was opened and tabulated on April 12th, 2021. Staff researched this bid and compared it to the previous bid we received for the same type of equipment in FY19. And this bid reflects a 3.59% increase from the FY19 bid, which we awarded. The cost increase is reasonable and less than we have seen in other vehicles and equipment over the same 2-year period. Staff recommends award to the sole lowest responsive bidder, K. Neal International Trucks Incorporated, in an amount of $196,975. Do you have any questions for me?
Council members, questions, comments? If not, would someone like to move the resolution? Ryan?
I'll move the resolution.
Mike?
I'll second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Council Vice President Sesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel.
Aye.
Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
And Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Okay, carries 5-0. Sean, you have the next one too. Go right ahead.
The second resolution I bring before you tonight is to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of one 2021 or current production year backhoe loader. Unit number 5944 is a 2011 John Deere 410 backhoe and has reached the end of its useful service life. Due to the age, condition, and reliability, this unit needs to be replaced. Once the replacement backhoe is received, it's a 2021 JCB 3X-15 Super Backhoe, is ready for service, Unit 5944 will be sold at public auction. On March 17, 2021, a solicitation for the purchase of one 2021 or current production year backhoe loader was advertised on the city website and in an issue of e-Maryland Marketplace. 4 companies responded to the solicitation and bids were opened and tabulated on April 12, 2021. Staff reviewed all bids for compliance and also compared the low bid to the low bid we received in FY19 from the same bidder and found that this bid had increased from FY19 by 15.9% for the same model backhoe, different model year, obviously. Staff recommends award to the lowest responsive bidder, Valley Supply Equipment Company Incorporated, in an amount of $104,900. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Sean. Questions or comments from the council? If not, would someone like to move the resolution? Mike?
It's nice to see a Maryland company providing this equipment. I'm just surprised. Did you say it was a 15% increase from the 2011 bid? Is that what it was?
No, we bought another backhoe in fiscal year 19, and the price of this year's bid in FY21 increased by 15.9% from that bid.
Wow.
And that's what we're seeing, a lot of that equipment and vehicle wise. We're seeing, that mid-teens in, cost increases just over the past 2 years. So that's another reason why I'm happy with the 3.59% increase on the previous resolution.
Okay, well, if nobody else has questions, I'll move the resolution.
Okay. Gloria.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Council Vice President Sesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel.
Aye.
Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
And Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
All right, carries 5-0. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mark. Good to see you both. Next, we're going into policy discussions, and I'd like to call Kevin Roman and Mark Fine, please, tech team. We're going to talk about CCOC. Kevin, I'll let you go ahead and introduce. Oh, we have John Schlichting too. Welcome, John.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have Chairman Mark Fine with us tonight to answer any questions. But tonight's topic is a policy discussion on an ordinance to amend 2-6 of the City Code entitled Exemptions from Montgomery County Legislation and Regulation within the City. The amendments seek to include Chapter 10B of the Montgomery County Code entitled Common Ownership Communities and make it applicable within the city. The intent of Chapter 10B of the Montgomery County Code is to promote an equitable balance between the powers of community governing bodies, owners, and residents. If the ordinance is adopted, it would provide residents and the governing bodies of common ownerships, communities in the city access to the services provided by Montgomery County CCOC program. Those services include educational programs, technical assistance to board of directors and the association members, a regulation of elections, budget adoptions, and enforcement procedures. It also provides a program to resolve disputes, which includes mediations and legally binding hearings. Registration would be mandatory for all our associations, and it requires certain training for members of the governing bodies and an annual fee of $5 per dwelling unit in each association. The proposed ordinance was introduced on October 19th, 2020. The mayor and council held a public hearing regarding the ordinance on November 16th, 2020. The public record was held open until 5 p.m. on December 11th, 2020. We have just about 900 pages in the record. The initial policy discussion was held back in January 4th and then tabled pending additional information on the potential cost of establishing a city-based CCOC program. Subsequently, a work session was then conducted on April 12th that provided the estimated personnel and operating costs of a city-based commission. Additionally, Councilmember Sales questioned the response time of complaints issued to the CCOC, and it was determined that most hearings are scheduled within 60 days of receipt of the complaint to the CCOC. Once a complaint is received, the county staff sends a notice of the complaint to the respondent, providing 30 days to respond. After the 30 days is up, the complaint will enter the mediation phase, where most of the complaints are settled. If mediation is unproductive, a formal hearing is then scheduled. Also at that work session back on April 12th, it was suggested by Councilmember Spiegel to delay the effective date of the ordinance to July of 2022. This would allow more time for the economic impact of the pandemic to subside and provide our associations time to make the necessary budget adjustments, while also allowing the CCOC to make any internal adjustments for the increased workload. Therefore, the ordinance tonight has a proposed effective date of 20 days following adoption, but it has a mandatory implementation date of July 1st, 2022. Therefore, this would allow common ownership communities in the city to voluntarily opt in and utilize the services of the CCOC between the effective date and the implementation date. With that, Chairman Fine and I would answer any questions, and I'll turn it back over to the mayor and council for discussion.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'll go to you in a sec, Ryan, but let me just say a couple things first. This is policy discussion. As everyone knows, I don't have a vote, so really I'm the most irrelevant voice here, and therefore I'm going to start. Anyway, first, I just want to start by acknowledging the public and expressing my gratitude for everybody who has testified either in person or by voice over Zoom or in writing on this issue. I think this is the third time this issue has come up in the 14 years I've been in office, and it's always more contentious than I expected to be. It seems that there's more momentum this time than there has been the previous couple of times that it's been broached. I have always been inclined in favor of CCOC, and it comes not only from my position as mayor and sort of the frustration we sometimes have as a city when people come to us with legitimate concerns about, or what seem to be legitimate concerns about disputes they're having with their HOAs that we really can't do anything about. But also it's from the perspective of I spent 4 years on the board of an HOA, and I respect and think I have a high regard for the level of training that's offered by CCOC. And as Larry Seeger pointed out today, I think that CCOC can work out in favor of HOA boards. And I also, there were situations where there were aggrieved members of our community who had no recourse and did not have the means to take the HOA to court at the time. And maybe they had a case to make. So I just feel like this serves those people who don't have the deep pockets and in situations where maybe the HOA is acting right, maybe it's not. And so I've been, if I had a vote, I would vote for this. And with that, I saw Ryan's hand go up first, so I'll go to Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about the operation of the CCOC that came up recently in some discussions that I've had, just to clarify for the public and for us as we have this policy discussion. My understanding is that the service period, the annual service period for a community that is a member of the CCOC is July 1st to June 30th. That essentially it tracks the city's fiscal year, so that regardless of at what point during the year an HOA pays the invoice for membership, that the annual service would be provided, the period would be July 1st to June 30th. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the other question I had, which is kind of a follow-up to some of the earlier comment we heard tonight and throughout the many public sessions we've held on this, is if we wanted to ask staff, our city staff, or in conjunction with CCOC staff, to provide an annual review, debriefing kind of report, or even an in-person work session or meeting briefing, to sort of let us know how the past year has gone with city HOAs making use of the CCOC if we join it. Will staff be able to kind of isolate out all of the data that would apply to communities that are within the city and sort of give us a picture of how it's going, how many cases have been brought, what the nature of the cases was, what the outcome was, specific to communities within the city?
Absolutely. We can sort it based on the licensee number, and they'll be assigned a specific number for the city.
Wonderful. Thank you. Those are the only two questions I had at this time.
Okay.
Neil Harris.
So I was going to ask the same question, although I might want to see reports more frequently than annually. I don't know if that's possible, Mark.
Whatever you would like.
Every week?
Sure. If that's what you want.
No, I don't really want that, but maybe twice a year or something like that, so we can get an idea of how things are going.
Whatever you want. I've had this conversation with Kevin. We have IT and they're full-time. They'll do whatever we need to do to pull the reports.
All right, and another question, and this is actually more of a city question, and I'm not sure what's possible. One of the issues I've had as we've gone through this conversation is the fact that it's apparent to me that most of the large HOAs in the city, which constitute probably a majority of the HOA and condo households, are generally okay. We haven't heard complaints from the big HOAs in Kentlands, Lakelands, and Saybrook, and some of the other larger communities. So my concern is that the issue that exists, that has been brought to us so many times and so eloquently by many members of the community, have tended to come from the smaller organizations that probably have either less management support or just are less organized or whatever, subject to less scrutiny. It seems like making the communities that are doing everything the right way pay for the communities that are doing things the wrong way is not fair in my mind. So I'm wondering if it's possible, and if we would consider, at least for the first year, if we decide to go forward with this program, having the city to cover the cost, which is approximately $70,000, rather than making the HOAs pay for it. And that way we can really measure what value we're getting and where the cost is coming from, and see if we think that this is not only a good system, but a fair system.
Is that to me or to the mayor?
To whoever would know the answer to the question. I'm not sure how you charge people, so I'm not sure how the money it has to get paid.
We invoice straight to the association, either directly or through their management company, and they pay it online or however they choose to do it.
So if the city chose to pick up the tab for whatever period of time, could you just invoice the city for the whole thing?
Yes.
All right,
we could do that.
I guess the question is to the council, whether that's something that would be worth considering. I know this would happen in a future budget year, so it's not something that we would be in a position to decide today. I just would like to take the temperature of the council.
All right, I saw Ryan's hand. Go ahead, Ryan. And then
Yeah, I was just going to make the point that I think Neil already just made, which is that if the ordinance passes tonight and the implementation deadline is July 1st of 2022, as we've discussed, then that would be the start of a future fiscal year for the city, and basically would be, I guess, the 2023 fiscal year budget that would fall under. That gives us time to have that conversation, not in the current budget cycle, which I guess we just sort of closed, but in the next budget cycle discussion. I'm willing to have that discussion for sure. I don't think it should hold us up in making a decision tonight, but it's a discussion we can have about whether it's something we'd be willing to fund in the FY 2023 budget year.
Okay, we'll go to Lorianne.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So now that we are at the point where we're discussing provisions in this resolution, I know that there were suggestions on if we're going to do a regular check-in. Once we've opted into this program, what is the requirement or the process for opting out? Should we deem that it's not helpful, or we're not getting the best return on our investment?
I can answer that question. We would have to go through the ordinance process again. So if we would decide to opt out, you would need to pass another ordinance amending section 2-6 of the city code to take out the applicability of this section of the county code.
Okay. And I'm not sure what success or, failure would look like, or what would deem this, something that we would want to reverse. And so have we discussed that? Is that based on a lack of usage of the services, or what would success look like, and what would a reversal potentially look like, on what grounds?
Well, that might be a question for you guys, for the council. Ryan, go ahead. Ryan, you want to address that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I think it's not something that we can necessarily quantify in advance. I think that's the reason why we want to get, updates every 6 months or every year, whatever we decide makes sense. And, in looking at the benefit to cost balance of this service, we could consider whatever factors we want. If we feel like, it's not being utilized enough, or the outcomes don't seem as beneficial as we thought they would be, or whatever, really on any of those bases, we could decide whether or not we want to move forward with a process to pass a repeal of the ordinance at any time. Really, it doesn't have to even be on the annual, anniversaries of when we join. But I think, for me, I'm not a supporter of a sunset provision at this point, because I think that it creates too much uncertainty. And I think it makes more sense for us to, instead of saying, every year or every 2 years, we'll re-up it, let's join it. And then, let's get our regular briefings on how it's going. And if the picture starts to become one to us that shows that the benefit does not outweigh the cost, then we can consider moving forward with the process to leave the CCOC, if that's what we want to do. It could be 2 years from now, it could be 5 years from now, it could be never. We may be very happy with the services and not want to leave, but I don't like the idea of the uncertainty for our HOA communities. Once we go in, we should go in and then wait and see whether it's useful or not before just arbitrarily saying, a year from now or 2 years from now, we might pull back out.
Well, I don't want to say that we're going to pull out, but that we're going to, review it and make a decision at that time. I think within, a 1 year period, 2 check-ins may not be enough. I know that Kevin mentioned we had about 12 complaints in the first quarter of this year. And so what are we anticipating as far as responsiveness, and how many people are we hoping to accommodate out of, how many people are going to be opted in, and the 70,000 that's going to be expended. And so I just want to get an understanding of what success looks like for a resource that we are piloting. And if we're piloting, I think we should discuss Neil's recommendation about, footing the bill for this pilot to see if this is something that should be continuous, and then pass this fee on to, our taxpayers, or are we just going to go into it and not really have a way out if 2 years or 3 years or 5 years comes and we're kind of stuck?
So I see a lot of hands. The first hand I saw was Mark's, then Mike, then Neil. Mark, go ahead.
If it would give a better comfort level, I have no problem talking with the director tomorrow and having an account set up to where, for example, Kevin could dial in when we're set to do the transitioning. He can have access into the CMS, the case management system, and he can actually see firsthand what's going on with any case involving Gaithersburg. He's going to be able to look at the system and see what the exact status is right then of that case.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we'll go to Mike and then Neil.
So, Neil made a case that, you know, the larger HOAs don't seem to have problems, but I do want to point out that a number of the individuals, residents and members of HOAs who brought us concerns and complaints were residents of Kentlands, Lakelands, Saybrook, Washingtonian Woods. So yeah, they are probably run better and they probably have fewer complaints or fewer issues, and issues that could probably be resolved pretty easily. Yet there are individuals and homeowners in those communities that have encouraged the city to adopt the opportunity to become part of the CCOC. So of those communities become part of the CCOC. I'm not particularly excited by the idea of the city completely underwriting the entire cost of enrolling for the first year. But certainly it's something that we should discuss. And I agree with Ryan that we should discuss that after we decide what to do with this situation. So I think I've been in support of this each time it's been proposed, largely because we are basically, as a city, by state law, we are powerless to assist and to mediate issues between homeowners and their HOA. Some of those certainly are legitimate, and clearly there's some abuse, and often and sometimes it's also an issue of an HOA dealing with a homeowner, a property owner within their community. So it does go both ways. I don't think, you know, we had an opportunity to bring this up with the delegation and say perhaps some legislation needs to be proposed to address the issue of HOAs and their responsibilities to their residents at a state level that would allow a municipal government, a local government, to intercede. But that's not, I didn't hear anybody propose that or ask that in the future. So certainly that we did hear about landlord and tenant legislation. We heard about some other HOA legislation, but we didn't hear anything about allowing municipal government or local government to become an intermediary in this process, other than to offer this kind of commission. So, so that, I mean, that I don't think my position's changed on this each time that it's been discussed. I think there's certainly a lot more. There's a reasonable case to be made for why we should do this. So that's where I am tonight.
Thank you, Mike. We'll go to Neil.
All right, so I'd like to correct something that Mike just said, and I apologize for saying it that way, but 100% of the Kentlands and Lakelands people who had issues, to my knowledge, were part of condo associations under the umbrella of the larger HOAs. They were not members of the Kentland Citizens Assembly or the Lakelands Community Association. There are a whole bunch of condo associations underneath that are much smaller and seem to have had more issues. That said, the struggle that I've had throughout this process, as I've made clear, is the fairness issue, and I've been looking for an alternative to doing this, and this, which is why I brought up in a previous conversation the possibility of the city creating its own organization. Kevin has shown why that's probably not practical at this point. It would be more efficient to go with the existing organization that the county has set up, and more cost effective, and probably give us better results sooner than later. Having heard from so many residents that have had issues with their condo boards or their HOA associations, I've reluctantly come to the conclusion that this is something we need to do. We at least need to try it. And it's been a struggle because my experience on the board and as an officer of a large HOA here in Kentlands has been that that the citizens did not have an issue with us. We had more of an issue with citizens, particularly a lot of people with law degrees who have the ability to, and Ryan's laughing because he knows what that's like. But I mean, the real issue is that those people If they want to cause delay, they can do it without having to pay money or only nominal sums of money in terms of court fees, because they can do this themselves. And I've seen that happen any number of times where they've had the power to run up the bill for the HOA and greatly delay any potential action sometimes for years. But despite that, I think at this point, I've come to the conclusion that the greater good is giving the smaller HOAs and the residents the mechanism to deal with the issues. In terms of how we measure success, I'm not willing to suggest any specifics, because the first thought is, we want to know for $70,000 a year that are funded out of our HOA member dues, how many cases are being seen. But in fact, over time, if the number of cases goes down because we're educating the boards, that would be a positive outcome that would be well worth the money going forward. So I think we're going to have to see what the numbers look like and what the data shows as we go forward before we draw any conclusions as to how we want to measure success. What we want is fewer people coming to us and saying they've got problems that they can't get solved. So I have changed my mind, and I am going to vote in favor of moving forward with the CCOC at this time.
Thank you, Neil. And Mike, does anybody else want to state their position during policy discussion before we go to a vote? I know Rob Wu is recused, so it's not going to be him. I see Ryan's hand. Go ahead, Ryan.
Seeing no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move the ordinance.
Okay, Mike.
I will second the motion.
Okay, I will call the roll. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Council Vice President Sesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Spiegel.
Aye.
Councilmember Sales.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
And Councilmember Wu, you were recused, so I don't. Does he need to say that, Lynn? He doesn't need to say it again, right?
So yeah, I'll abstain from the vote, but if you'll indulge me for a few brief words, Mr. Mayor, I've been biting my lip for past sessions.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The vote having been taken and kind of agnostic to the vote itself, I just wanted to thank those who spoke so eloquently on both sides of the issue. Thanks, Kevin and Mark, for your indulgence. I know we got to this point because of kind of my discussion before I had to recuse myself. So I appreciate your time and effort here. I think a lot of good points going forward as far as monitoring the program. We'll have good discussions on those. And last but not least, I wanted to acknowledge Ryan's leadership on the issue. I mean, as I mentioned, I think when we first started this, that first beer we had together, the first thing he mentioned to me was CCOC, and I had no idea what it was. So kudos to Ryan.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, Kevin and Mark, thank you all very much. Next item on our agenda is from the city attorney. Lynn, do you have anything for us?
I have nothing further this evening.
Okay, and I already heard from Dennis that he doesn't have anything to add. So I will remind everybody to join us next week for our work session on budgetary matters. We have no work session on May 31st, and then the next regular meeting of the mayor and council, I believe the date was June 7th. I'm just checking on that really quick.
That's correct.
June 7th. Thank you, Doris. Please enjoy the book festival these last 2 weeks, and you can catch up on programs that you missed. And until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.